Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Rats on Film, the show where a bunch of film rats talk about and rank movies. Today on the show, we're growing up a little bit. We're talking about coming-of-age films. On the show with me today, I have Jordan.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Taylor.
Hello.
And I'm your host, Xander. Welcome to the show, everybody. So we're talking about coming-of-age movies. We had a very lengthy debate about how we were going to do this. It's a genre we all like, and it felt like something we wanted to talk about, just a genre that's not represented on anything we've covered so far. And we just couldn't come up with a good way to break it down that we agreed upon. We thought about doing high school specifically, like younger than high school specifically, teacher-student relationship ones, certain countries, and we just were just like, fuck it, we're just going to pick a bunch of coming-of-age movies and we'll just make an ongoing list.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a genre that is done a lot, but there's dramas, there's comedies, there's groups of movies that feel very specifically related, so it's kind of hard to find a good solid list of movies to rank. But I think the ones that we came up with today it's a good representation of the more dramatic with comedic elements.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of movies in this genre, in this little subgenre of coming of age, tend to be across like that whole spectrum of you can have incredibly dramatic moments and really funny moments as well, because it's how life is. You guys want to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, first up on the list, Dead Poets Society, 1989, directed by Peter Weir.
I'm just going to come out and say this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I obviously love coming of age movies. That's why I'm on this episode. But this movie specifically, it just is so nostalgic. It's so well paced. It's so well performed.
I always think it's really cool when there's such an ensemble cast and you care about almost all of the characters equally, which I feel like is kind of a hard balance to strike oftentimes. But I feel like the boys in this movie, they all kind of have their own stuff going on. Some are funny, some are sad, but you really are rooting for all of them. You know, you feel connected to all of them in a way that is really fun and cool.
Yeah, I agree. It is interesting to watch a group of people in the same circumstance, but all from different backgrounds, experience the same thing and grow in different ways because of it.
I feel like the setting too, specifically of the boarding school, gives this one a very specific feel to it because, you know, they are like really learning to be autonomous grown-ups for the first time, which is fun. Like, you know, that very first scene, move-in day or whatever, and like the second their parents leave, like that kid immediately lights up, and then like one of the dads comes back into the room and he's like, oh shit, and like hides the cigarette. Like the second they have freedom, they're like, we're gonna be adults.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this is one of my favorite coming of age movies, and I love the character of Neil Perry, and he is probably maybe the only character in a coming of age movie that never comes of age. His arc is just so well done because he is limited by his parents, and specifically his dad refuses to let him be the person that he wants to be. And in the moments before he decides to take his life, he's able to kind of reconcile with that and be the person that he wants to be, albeit it's like one performance, but
he was really good.
Yeah, he was so good. Just so devastating. But like for a genre, because I think we'll talk about this a lot with all of these movies, a lot of these characters have some sort of external force, you know, that's kind of beating them down. And then they have to learn either how to reconcile with it, deal with it, or move past it and just be the person they want to be. And Neil does is just like a bit different than all the other characters, but the way that he inspires his best friend Todd, they were roommates, his best friend Todd to come of age is also so important. Like the characters of Neil and Todd in this movie are just like so well done for me. Todd is so shy and he's just so reserved in the beginning. He doesn't really know the person that he wants to be. There's like the Mr. Keating character who obviously is giving all of these boys motivation to be the people that they want to be. But I love the interactions between Todd and Neil. Neil really being more confident in the person that he wants to be, but having that external force of his father not letting him, and Todd just not knowing who he wants to be at all. But then by being a part of Mr. Keating's class and also seeing Neil kind of come into his own power when he does the play, it's just really heartwarming to see Todd at the end of the movie be like more of a man.
Well, it's interesting to talk about those two characters and thinking about them as dual protagonists because, to your point, Todd doesn't really do anything the entire movie. You know, he's very much that type of passive protagonist. And ultimately, he gets the biggest moment of the film. I think even if you've never seen this movie, I think everybody knows the standing on the table saying, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." And I think that it's really interesting the way that Keating inspires everybody, and then his inspiration of Neil inspires the next group who didn't quite get inspired by Keating.
I think another thing too, I know we're talking about the kids, obviously a coming of age podcast, but I think something that a lot of these films have in common, and something that maybe this was like one of the most notable archetypes of, is that teacher. I feel like Robin Williams in this role like goes down in history as like the archetype of that like kind, understanding, inspiring educator. And I feel like a lot of the movies we're going to talk about today, a lot of these kids have someone outside of their home who is like filling that space and giving them that encouragement that maybe they're not getting.
Well, and I think why this is such a popular genre, and there are so many movies that fall into this, is everybody has had hard times, and it varies. You know, not everybody's parents are like Neil's parents, not everybody's parents are like Todd's parents, and not everyone necessarily has a John Keating in their life, but everybody has someone who's there when you're growing up. And I think, yeah, that type of character is really interesting, and it's a really good way to set the movies apart in a way. And Robin Williams is just one of the most incredible actors that ever was. I think there's so many things I could say about him. I think the thing I would say, he truly is one of a kind. There truly is no one else like him. I genuinely don't think any role that Robin Williams did could have been done by anybody else better than he did it.
Yeah, he's so unique and genuine, and just comes across like so endearing. Every word that he says, like, you fully buy into that his character believes it. And because his character believes it so much, and you can tell that Mr. Keating wants to kind of infect these boys' lives and change their mindsets, because he went to this school, like he knows them, he is them, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's a really good parallel to be like, he was the guy who went to this school and kept teaching there because he knew what type of person the school fostered.
Yeah. I feel like somebody else doing that role would be really corny. Like it could very easily be taken in like a very like cheesy, dorky, like whatever, you know, kind of mentality. And it's like, you feel just as enamored as the kids do while they're hearing that. You could see it on their faces, and you're like, damn, I also like, I do want to seize the day. Like that makes me want to do something with my life.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot on this podcast, honestly. I mean, this is a whole podcast where we discuss art. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely adore a message that is just express yourself, be yourself, and think for yourself. And I think that that's really important for young people to learn. I think conformity is a danger that a lot of people fall into. You know, you don't want to be an outsider. You want to fit in. That kind of feeling is so universal to everybody growing up. And I love this man coming in and saying, why would you want to conform? Why wouldn't you want to be the most you could be? I think that's a very powerful message. And yeah, I mean, coming from Robin Williams, it's just, ooh.
And Taylor said it earlier, but it's so well done in this movie, because all of the boys kind of have something different going on in their lives that they're going for. Someone's trying to get the girl, someone's trying to be in a play, someone's just trying to have the self-confidence to talk up in class. Like, I don't know, you just see a lot of like different aspects of coming of age through the different characters. Like, yes, they're maybe a little archetypical and you don't see all aspects of who each character is, but because there's like this collective group of them, you kind of see how like all the boys have different little things going for them.
Yeah, and in the end, you know, there's a really, like, talking about the powerful moment again of everyone sitting on the table, there is that moment of reflection of the audience of like, who's standing, who's not in the room. Neil's not there. Charlie's not there. Charlie's not there because he stood up for Mr. Keating, even though it cost him everything. And there's something to be said about that. And then there's something to be said about the kids that didn't stand up for him, but are now standing up in this moment a little bit later. And then the kids that don't stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that little redheaded rat.
Yeah,
rat
worst.
Negative, though, not rat like us.
How dare you? He's a grub. He's a little dirt grub. Yeah. I'm with Charlie. Punch that kid in the face again.
Yeah, I think this movie is just such a testament to what it feels like to grow up, and then also a testament to the importance of education and how education and even just communication has the ability to change lives. Like, you guys were just saying, like, at the end of the movie, like, who's standing, who's not, whatever. Like, there are characters who have changed just within the scope of a semester, basically. And it's really all because of the Robin Williams character.
Yeah, I mean, he maybe doesn't change the world, so to speak, but he changes all of these kids' worlds.
Yeah. in my mind, this is almost a perfect movie. I think it just really embodies what it probably would have been to be a white guy, 1959, growing up at a boarding school. Love this movie.
Started on the top for now. Next up on the list, Submarine, 2010, directed by Richard Ayoade. This one's crazy. This one's crazy, crazy positive. It is genuinely one of the weirdest movies I think I've ever seen.
It's so bizarre, but in like an incredibly captivating way from the second it begins until the second it ends.
Yeah, I remember being legitimately 15 and watching this movie because Taylor told me to watch it, and just being swept in, I fully bought in. It's funny, I went to college, obviously years later, and really, really got into French New Wave film in school. Like I went through a really big phase where I was like watching Godard, Truffaut, Borda, and this movie has so many New Wave techniques in it. And I've shown you guys a bunch of movies and we've watched them together, but the color palette being the red, white, and blue, the fading to the solid colors in the middle of the film, the text cards in between random scenes, some of the way that it's shot, like the absurdity of it all, the ending on like the beach scenes, they're so French New Wave. And honestly, it's funny because I really latched on to New Wave films in college, and it probably was because of how much I loved this movie in retrospect. But Oliver Tate as your main character, on the one hand, he has everything figured out. He talks like he's 55 years old. But on the other hand, he's so dumb and he's so not well versed in the real world, and he lives inside this bubble. But like, I love seeing the world through his point of view.
My summary of this movie is kind of regular growing up situations, but viewed through a freak experiencing them. Because at the end of the day, it's your first girlfriend and your parents' marital troubles, which is something that a lot of people experience. Mm-hmm. And it's from the lens of this teenager who talks like he's 55, who plans every move out and calculates everything and assumes that he knows best about everything, and he knows best about nothing. He just knows nothing about the real world. And it's just so uniquely charming to watch him just get everything so wrong. Just like totally botch everything. And he's cruel, but he does care and he's trying. And you go, but you're so dumb, dude. Like, you're doing it all wrong. And obviously I'm watching it as an adult. And I think that that's what happens when you're a kid and you're experiencing things for the first time, your first girlfriend, your parents. Oh my God, are my parents going to split up? You think maybe I can be the best boyfriend in the entire world, or maybe I can fix their marriage. And he just can't.
Something that I think is fun about this one, we talked about the parents, is that like they're also sort of going on their own coming of age journey. And I think that's really fun too, is like the coming of age never stops. Like the party never stops because you never know what you're doing. And like his parents are obviously full grown adults, but like are also idiots. Like they're not really any more knowledgeable about like going through life than their son is. And it's kind of like a fun dual perspective on, you know, seeing the son being like, I can fix this, and they're like sort of bumbling through it in their own way. And you know, they get there in the end, but it's like, yikes the whole time.
No, yeah, it's a really good point, because coming of age is very much associated with specifically like the teen years. I feel like is what most people think about, but everybody's always learning and growing and experiencing new things and figuring things out for the first time. Who would have thought that your wife's ex-boyfriend from college would become a mystic and move across the street from you? Like, you just don't expect that.
And like live in a van, like
your kid would break into his home, like,
and set it on fire.
That part is so funny to me. It's just so absurd. I just love it. It's like, what a climax of a movie. It's incredible. I love this movie so much. And I think that Oliver and Jordana really, they're like 50-50 of my personality. And I think they just they really show what it's like to be a teenager and to be in a relationship as a teenager, where like you kind of have everything figured out about yourself and the other person, but also you know nothing. You have these emotions, you want to be emotional, but also you don't at all. Their relationship is so funny to me, like kissing and taking all the Polaroids, and then her just like walking away from it. Like, it's just so real and so me, and I love it.
Her favorite thing is burning his leg hair.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then when she does it to the next other guy and he's just watching her, it's so good.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, talking about Jordana as well, because both of them are acting so mature, acting like they have everything figured out, and just so specifically emotionally immature, just very unable to express themselves and how they feel and what they're going through. And Jordana, you know, we talked about what Oliver's going through, but Jordana's going through a very difficult time where her mother is sick. She might lose her, and trying to process those emotions and just not being able to, but also needing somebody to be there for her, but not being able to express that super well. And then she finally does, and Oliver does not get it and totally drops the ball on it. And she hates him for it, and kind of rightfully so. And people let you down in your life. And yeah, I mean, she moves on to bigger things, taller things.
When she finds her way back at the beach.
Yeah, I came to this movie too. I have to shout out Alex Turner doing the music. I think the original songs are incredible.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
It's got to be one of the movie soundtracks I listen to the most. I just think the acoustic vocal performance, it just Alex Turner's specific lyrics lend themselves really well to this movie about this kid that just operates on a really weird level.
Definitely. Banger soundtrack. It's an interesting one because nothing quite as traumatic happens in this one as some of the other ones, even though it feels very serious. Like there's relationship drama, there's parental relationship drama, there's illness that drops, but at the end of the movie, nothing as bad as some of the other movies happens. But I do think I feel like you still get that coming of age arc a little bit. Like I think he needed to get the awkward moments out, and I think like we mentioned it very briefly, but when he goes to the Mystic's house, I feel like he's learning. I feel like by the end of the movie, he's learned a little bit.
Well, there's a great quote, and I honestly don't even know what it is verbatim, but at the end of the movie, he says, "I don't know if I've come of age, but I'm definitely older." And I think that goes into what you were saying, Taylor, of like, you could be an adult and still be quote unquote coming of age.
Yeah. I think that's the fun one about this one is like, it really, maybe because it's so absurd and so silly, like everyone can see parts of themselves in all of the characters, like the adult and the kid characters. And so it's just kind of like a fun love letter to like being human in a way. Maybe more so than some that feel like very hyper specifically like being of an age. Like this one feels out of time to me, I think is the best way to describe it. And maybe part of that is because of the sort of bizarre world that is created by the acting choices and the script and the, you know, the music and like the very hyper specific style of it. But it just feels very, it could be anyone at any point in time.
Yeah, it's funny we like called out the soundtrack because there are also moments in this movie that almost just feel like a music video when they're like doing their like date montages and they're like running around with sparklers. Like, yeah, like it just feels very music video, vision board, like vibes only. And I don't know, that's what makes it so good to me. And I agree. I think, I mean, Oliver literally says it, but this one is a coming of age movie where like, and to Taylor's point about the parents, like maybe you never come of age and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the point of this one.
Where do you guys want to put Submarine?
Oh, this is also one of my favorite movies of all time. It will not touch Dead Poets. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's got to go below Dead Poets for me as well.
I would also put it below Dead Poets. So easy, unanimous decision. Next up, Perks of Being a Wallflower, 2012, directed by Stephen Chbosky.
Also the author of the book.
And the screenwriter.
Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of those movies that is very of its time. And I can never watch it without thinking about how I felt the first time I watched it. It's just one of those movies that every time I watch it, no matter how many times I watch it in a year, it takes me back to the first time I watched it. And I love it. And this one is also interesting for me because I have read the book and I read the book before I saw the movie. And the book was also one of those experiences that I had that like stuck with me forever. Like I will remember the first time I read this book. It was just one of those things that marks my teenage years. Like this, I'm reading a lot of John Green novels. Like I remember where I was and how I was feeling every time I read those books. And this book specifically like devastated me. And I'll never forget that feeling. And this movie devastates me, but it's also a comfort movie.
Yeah, I think this one is so sad.
It is really sad, but it's also so cozy and so familiar and so nostalgic, and it makes me feel life reaffirmed when I watch it.
This one has a really interesting quality with the sadness where it's really slow burn sad. You know, it kind of starts out with the loner, and the more and more information you find out as the movie continues, the more you're just contextualized about how difficult life is for these kids, this group of kids in the movie.
I think the nice thing about that is I totally agree with you. This one is like so much heavier, you know, than say like a submarine. I think the nice part about that is they still find like all these moments of joy and whimsy and like just being kids, which I think is cool, because I think a lot of traumatic stories about kids of this age have a tendency to just like really only live in the trauma, and it just kind of keeps like dogpiling on.
I feel like this one is really the power of friendship and how important relationships are to your life, and in between the intense, difficult things that all of these characters are going through, they have each other. And sometimes those people come in weird shapes and sizes. I mean, Sam and Patrick are weirdos, and he ends up finding really close and powerful connections for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I do think that's definitely in the movie, and it's part of it. But I also think there is like a through line in this movie where actually no one really understands each other and is a good friend to each other. Everyone's really not there for each other. And I think that also speaks to growing up and how sometimes you need people and maybe you can't trust them fully, and maybe they also aren't perfect people, but you still have to like keep going and live your life and be there and show up the best you can. Like even Charlie is pretty terrible to like Mary Elizabeth specifically, but then also to some, like all of them at a certain point, right? Like he is incapable of being a good friend because of what he's going through. And I think that's kind of what they all are going through in different ways. I do think, especially at like the climax of the movie, you realize that no one is perfect and everyone has a backstory and everyone is incapable of being the best friend that they need to be. And I think that's like a huge part of this movie too.
Yeah, it's no one's job to be your friend, right? Everybody's an individual. Everybody has to deal with what they're dealing with before they're dealing with what you're dealing with. And yeah, I mean, that happens to Charlie when he does something sort of terrible to Mary Elizabeth and then he gets kicked out of the friend group and that ends up being devastated to him. But he's not thinking about how cruel he was in that moment. He's just like, can I just say sorry and get back in?
And the beauty of a lot of those relationships is that they do kind of reconcile at the end. And even though there's a lot of high highs and low lows, like there is some sort of coming together at the end where, especially for Sam and Charlie, they have like that moment at the end that's pretty nice. And obviously there's the tunnel song, and in that moment I swear we were infinite. But
the little known tunnel song performed by
Heroes by David
a little known artist, David Bowie, who they could not find in the record store because no one knew what they were talking about.
That's a really bad choice.
I thought that was wild when I saw it in the movie. Then when I read the book, they never say what the song is. It makes so much more sense in the book. Like you think it's this cool, like indie underground, like they're weirdos. They hang out at the record store. Like they're always picking up random records and stuff. And in the movie, it's so funny because it's like maybe one of the most
it's a top
famous
5 Bowie
songs
song
of all time.
They didn't even pick a deep cut Bowie.
It's just, it's really, really silly. But the scene is beautiful. It's cute. I like when they're in the car together.
It's just such a good scene, and it's, at least in my experience, and you guys can weigh in on this, I just think it's like a mirror to what it feels like to be a kid. Like we've all had like that moment that actually, if you were to take like a bird's eye view, looks lame as shit, but like you felt like I'm alive, I'm a teenager, I'm growing, life is worth living. It's so simple. Like it literally is something anyone could probably do, but like, I don't know, you have those moments and you're just like, yeah, life was like at its peak at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just making a memory with your friends. You know, there's something to that. That gets harder when you get older. When you're young, you have the time and you're all together all the time and you're constantly making new memories, and sometimes just a random moment really sticks with you. And I think there's power to that.
Yeah, I think the performances are also pretty good in this movie. I love Emma Watson with my whole heart, but accent questionable. But her performance is really endearing, and I think she embodies the character of Sam really well. And I think the Sam-Charlie dynamic, it's cringe, but I love it.
It's also like cringe for a reason, like that it feels real. Like we all had those interactions when we were young.
Yeah.
We were on either side of them.
Yeah. Ezra's performance is really good. I love that Patrick sees Charlie and like gets him the suit to be an author. Like that's just so cute. There's so many good moments in this movie that you're just like, oh, like, I don't know, I love it. And then going back to like the teacher student thing, I think Paul Rudd is a really good anchor in this movie of like kind of a voice of reason for Charlie to keep going even when things get tough.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to be seen by somebody. You know, you can be going through a difficult moment and you just need someone to notice that you're going through a difficult moment. And I think that that's a really important role that the Paul Rudd character plays in this, of just, hey, maybe we can just bond over our love of books. And it's a really wholesome, nice relationship that they have.
I mean, and it's true. Like, I do think this movie has like a therapeutic element to it because of what we were saying before. Like, there is a lot of trauma in this movie. Like, obviously the Aunt Helen character and Charlie's best friend who killed himself at the beginning of the film off screen. There's a lot of weight surrounding the Charlie character. And you do still get to see a lot of moments of like pure joy from Charlie. We get the tunnel, we get Rocky Horror, we get him having his bonding with Sam. We get like dancing with Sam and Patrick at the dance to Come On Eileen. Like, there are so many great moments of like this kid who literally has so much weight on his shoulders, and he has some levity and has some real life connections with his friends and his teachers and his sister even.
Where do you guys want to rank Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Not to keep going in the order that we're going, but it's third for me.
I think that's also true for me.
Yeah, I would also put it third.
Wow, we're all agreeing in order.
Whatever.
Well, you know, who knows what's going to happen next?
It's gonna be crazy.
All right, next up, Dope, 2015, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. I just saw this one for the first time recently. I think that this one is a really interesting one in the coming of age genre, because it's something that you talk about a lot, Jordan, the hyperspecificity of something to make something more relatable. And I love that this is obviously the coming of age story, but also wrapped in like a crime drug movie as well. And I think that sets it apart really well and makes this one really unique, where all these other ones we're talking about are things that are a bit more universal, you know, your parents fighting or having your first girlfriend or whatever. And the setting of this being very specifically, it's LA at large, like Inglewood, but it's also the Bottoms, right? They talk about there's drugs going on the streets. They live in a high school where when you walk into the school, you go through a metal detector. It's a very specific setting. And it's also something you don't see a lot, which is the black geek. And it's this kid who goes, I got a perfect score on my SATs. I love 90s hip hop, but I can't wait to go to Harvard. You know what I mean? That defying of sort of people's expectations of what you're going to see out of a black coming of age movie. And there's a really great uniqueness that this film has because of the tone and the weird genre blending that it does. I really like that about it.
Yeah, honestly, similar to Submarine, this one just has like a very unique point of view, I think. And the kid is not really a kid. Like, you relate to him, but he's not like an everyman. Like, he's a very specific kid. And Malcolm in this movie is also very specific. And with a great performance from Shameik Moore. I think he's really great in this movie. I also didn't watch this one when I was younger. So like, I don't have the nostalgia connection, but I had a blast watching it. And I think this genre, as the three movies that we've previously discussed and that we're going to talk about later, like it is very upper middle class white dominated. So it was really refreshing to see a different perspective in a format that I know, like it is a proper coming of age. I agree with you, Xander, that there's specificity and it's a bit unique and there's like that crime element, but it is still a coming of age movie for like a teenager going through high school and moving on to college.
I like this one as well for that, because the type of coming of age that it is it's the identity crisis one. It's a little bit more in the Dead Poets Society one rather than the Submarine or the Perks, where those are kind of about going through something. And this is more, yeah, they go through something like having to deal with dealing drugs, but it's more about figuring out who am I and how do I fit into the world. And also a really big thing is, how does the world see me, and how am I going to live in a world where I am going to get labeled immediately and try and own who I am, you know, kind of going back to like what John Keating is saying.
Yeah. I think this one too, like the setting of this one feels so much more modern than any of the others that we've talked about. So while some of the things they're dealing with are crazy, like I don't think a lot of us have been involved in sort of like a drug heist scenario, but I do think that a lot of us can relate to a lot of the other things that they're going through. Like, you know, a lot of people apply for college and like all the stress of those stupid essays that you have to do. And like, you know, with the guidance counselors talking to him at the one part that's like, oh, you should just write the essay that everybody writes, you know, about being like the black kid from Inglewood. And he's like, I don't want to write that essay. Like, I want to write something meaningful. And I also think the fun part of his character is like, he is a nerd, but he like doesn't think he's a loser, which I think is like a fun duality of him. Like, he like
he's
thinks
in a rock
cool.
band.
Yeah, like
also, that's an awesome element. Like,
his ska band is great. Like, but like, you know, he like believes in himself. He's not like the nerd, like the shrinking violet. Like, I don't deserve to be here. He's like, when I go to Harvard, like, and the, you know, the guidance counselor is kind of like making fun of him for it, but he's like, well, I'm going to Harvard.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I do really like that this movie obviously deals with like the real world issues of surrounding like racism and getting into school and being in an environment that you just grow into. Like everyone's a kid, right? Like you don't choose where you're born, you don't choose how you grow up in the world you grow up in, but it deals with that, and it's in the movie, and you can see the pressures, the societal pressures, the cultural pressures, but also, to Taylor's point, it isn't just a downer movie. Like, it's kind of what you were saying about Perks of Being a Wallflower. Like, this isn't just like a trauma movie. Like, he's dealing with racism, he's dealing with the drug problem, like he's dealing with, you know, the realities of what would happen if this all got put onto him, and like he has to figure out what to do with the drugs and everything. But he is cool as hell, and it's really fun to watch him come of age.
I do really like the performances. You shouted out Shamik Moore already. I think he has an incredible charm to him in this movie. You just want him to succeed. You're like, I would be friends with this geek. Like, I get he's a geek, but he seems like fun. We could talk about 90s hip hop, dude. Yeah. This would be a good time.
Their whole little trio, honestly, is like so fun. They just seem like a great time to hang out with.
Well, yeah. And, you know, this movie, we talked about it from like a racial stereotype type thing, but it's trying to defy, I think, all stereotypes. The way that if you hear nerd movie, you're going to think a certain thing. If you hear black coming of age movie, you're going to think a certain thing. And it's very much trying to defy those expectations and show you that it's not one size fits all with some of these labels that get put on people when they're young, and everybody can come into their own in their own way. And I think that's the overall message of the movie, and the overall message of a lot of coming of age movies.
I think this movie's set up perfect. I think we have a lot of fun and games, but I think the third act kind of falls apart for me a little bit until the ending. I think it sticks the landing. I think it fully sticks the landing. But there's like a little bit in the third act that I'm just like, you're losing me. Like, this isn't super realistic anymore. Like, and I think it is like the absurdity and the comedy, and like it plays and it's entertaining, but it loses me a little bit in that third act of just being like, what is actually going on for our characters anymore right now?
The girl that Shamik Moore meets in the mansion is crazy.
Yeah, like that whole thing.
Yeah. Insane behavior.
Yeah. I forgot about that for a second.
Yeah, she's like on the news.
Yeah. But then it's the other guy's daughter. Like it comes, I mean, it's all there. Like it's in.
There are elements of 1930s slapstick that come into play during that portion of the film, which is like funny in a way that none of the other movies we've talked about are funny. Yeah. And it's like an interesting genre blend.
Yeah. I mean, there are pros and cons to it. I think it is a little out of the coming of age subgenre. Like there's those elements, like they kind of just go more hard comedy, but I think the heart of the characters makes it fit in with this group really well. Again, I said this previously, but like it really does stick the landing. I think the whole ending, about him going to Harvard, and like
the college
really
essay
good.
is a great device for the coming of age. I mean, it's a little bit on the nose of, he talks about what he learned over the course of the movie, but I like his speech. I like the delivery of it, and I think the messaging is really good.
The soundtrack's really good too.
Yeah, bangers.
Got a lot of good like 90s hits in there. Also, the title, so good. Dope is dope, and I do like it.
Where do you want to put on the list?
Okay, not to follow suit, but it's gonna be fourth for me.
Yeah, same.
I would put it above Perks, but I'll be outvoted. I think I like the uniqueness of this one, and Perks feels very run of the mill to me comparatively. Totally fair.
I mean, I think the nostalgia for me wins out on Perks.
Next up, The Edge of 17, 2016, directed by Kelly Freeman Craig.
One thing that I really love about this movie is I think it really encapsulates teenage female rage in a way that is not really seen in movies. Like, I feel like a lot of times girls are kind of stereotyped to like the like sad, you know, like melodramatic, you know, kind of like, oh, everything's so hard. This movie, I feel like, as someone who at one point was a teenage girl, like really hits the nail on the head of like, sometimes you are just so angry at everything.
I love that too. And I think we get so in the weeds as a society about this movie's for boys, this movie's for girls. And absolutely everybody has different experiences growing up. And there are things that set different people apart. You know, we just talked about that with Dope, right? But also in the same way as Dope, there are some things about growing up that are universal.
I agree with both of your points. Like, I think that Nadine's character is really relatable. She has like more of an older teenage coming of age story. I think she's so angry. I get that a lot of teens are angry. I think it's important to see on screen. She's also incredibly funny. She's dealing with a lot. She doesn't really know how to communicate what she's dealing with. It's just incredible. I mean, to think about what you would do if your best and pretty much only friend started dating your brother.
Who you hate.
Yeah. I mean, the rage is real. I get it.
I think that this is a really interesting exploration of something that I think is even more prevalent today, which is main character syndrome. And I think that that is something that everybody experiences at a certain point in their life, but people don't talk about very often. And that is very much what Nadine is going through here. All the feelings that she is feeling are very real to her, and they're very personal to her. And she just like needs to express them. She needs to get them out. She's so angry at the world and everything that's going on around her. And she just has zero fucking perspective for anybody else. And the entire movie is just her bulldozing through every person in front of her, not giving a shit about them, to the ultimate realization of, oh man, other people are people that are complex and going through things too. And I think that that is a moment that almost everybody has at some point in their life where you go, oh shit, I really wasn't thinking about anybody else. And I was kind of being a dick. I like that she's an asshole. And I also love Woody Harrelson's character in this calling her out on being an asshole. We talked about the teacher dynamic. It's so good in this movie.
He's like the perfect teacher for her. Like, you know, we talked a lot about how, you know, like Charlie needed the Paul Rudd character to be like very kind and compassionate to him. And same really in Dead Poets with the Boys. She needs someone to be like, you are insane. Stop. But is also really supportive of her at the same time.
He's there for her, but he's telling her what she needs to hear.
Yeah, he really meets her on her level.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that a lot of teenagers need. And I think you were kind of saying this about her being like a bulldozer, and she does it through all of her relationships too. But in a lot of these movies, the Todd, the Marcus, the Charlie, they're almost cripplingly self-aware. And I think Nadine and Oliver, to an extent in Submarine, are just kind of like, this is who I am, world. Like, I have to push through it, and I'm going to deal with it in my own way. And it's just so fun to watch her basically break everyone around her. Everyone gets to a point where they're just like, Nadine, like, please. But we've all been there. It's a real portrayal of what Taylor mentioned, but like female teenage rage, and not being like the quiet wallflower, not being so uncomfortable with growing up that you have to fall to the back.
I do respect that Nadine is never afraid to take up space, which I think like a lot of the women, girls in these stories, like that is what they overcome, right? Is like learning how to take up space. But like the second we meet Nadine, she is like not afraid of that. And I think that's cool to see on screen, especially in a genre that is so dominated by, and even like outside of the movies we're talking about, where like most of the girl storylines are like learning to be able to use your voice and like speak up for yourself. Like that is not a concern for Nadine.
Yeah, we're hyping up Nadine's character. We have to shout out Haley Steinfeld. I think she's incredible in the role. I genuinely think she sells it so well. There's a great charm where even though she is all the things that we're saying, you still kind of love her. You want her to get better. You want her to be like, please open your eyes. Like, please see the bigger picture. And she does, and it's great. And yeah, I just think Haley Steinfeld is really, really great in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other movie outside of the list that we're talking about that even matches this movie in terms of similar characters is Lady Bird. Like, where you're kind of just like, shut up, but you're also like, I love you.
Yep.
And I am you. Like, I think those two movies are almost like twin sister movies, and I love both of them.
Also, just have to shout out another incredible soundtrack here. We have some really like of the moment songs. 1975 during the pool scene, just like iconic musical choices throughout. I feel like that's something that's so important in this genre, is like the soundtrack specifically, more so than the score, like really setting the tones of these movies, of like what it feels like to be a teenager of whatever time they're set in.
Yeah, and one thing I also really love about this movie is that obviously there's a lot of tension between Nadine and her brother and her mother, and there's tension created between her best friend because her best friend starts dating her brother. But at the end of the movie, I think it's really nice that she kind of sees that her friend isn't dating her brother to hurt her. Like, yes, I get that it hurts her and she understands that, but like that isn't the reason. It's actually because they are falling in love. And this movie is really about Nadine being pretty self-centered and only seeing the world from her own two eyes. And by the end of the movie, I think she's able to kind of recognize and recognize people for who they are and get some empathy.
Well, yeah, I mean, the brother character is so important because she hates him the whole movie, and she's the main character. She has a little voiceover. So you're told in the beginning of the movie that he's the worst person ever. And you can kind of get caught up with her as the audience and not even think about the fact that he also lost his dad. And in the time since then, he's now had to become the man of the house, so to speak. And there's no thought for Nadine about how that has affected him. She's just like, well, you're perfect and mom loves you more than me, so there's nothing wrong in your life. And the perspective that she gains in the movie of that, I think is really important.
I also love the romantic element in this movie. I love that she's obsessed with the guy from the pet store.
Ugh, such bad taste.
I love it so much. And then she literally like meets up with him in the car, and that scene cracks me up. Like, if you haven't seen the movie, you have to watch it because it's so good.
This one feels a little bit more like what we were talking about in Submarine, where the things that they're going through, the traumas that they're going through, are more easily relatable. Like, you don't really need to step outside of yourself. And like, while not everyone has lost a parent, like a lot of the other things are just things that teenagers go through. You know, they're not unfathomable traumatic scenarios. And it's not like so many layers of trauma that you're like, oh, I could never imagine like all 20 of those things happening to me.
I can't really imagine letting a teacher read my sexts. I think that's a little outside my world.
Crazy. Oh my god, that scene. Speaking of great performance, so Woody Harrelson in that scene.
Woody Harrelson is such a great foil for Nadine in this. It's great. The Haley Steinfeld and him are great on screen together. Where do you guys want to put The Edge of 17?
This is a tough one for me because part of me is like Perks of Being a Wallflower will always be my favorite, but after rewatching both of them recently, I think I'm going to put this one above Perks.
Above Perks? Taylor?
No, not to be fake, but that's exactly what I was going to say.
I would put this above Submarine. I'd put this in second.
Wow.
I guess it will go where you guys said.
Yeah, we out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine.
It's only one spot.
Yeah.
We gotta stop agreeing on everything.
All right, last up on the list, Love, Simon, 2018. Directed by Greg Berlanti.
I think this one feels the sweetest of all of them. This one is not to underplay what any of the characters are going through in this, but these are all just like very normal teenage things that a lot of kids are going through. Like, nothing in this is really capital T trauma that is outside the realms of just like growing up in the world that we live in today, really. And also, for the most part, everyone is like so nice and kind and understanding. And like, obviously there's the villain character who is creating all of the drama, but it's not in a way that feels like evil and not just like teenage bully.
Yeah, put him in the category with the fucking redhead from Dead Poet Society. Get him out of here.
Yeah, he sucks.
Martin.
Yeah, Martin is just, there's no version of him that is likable. And even by the end, like, I know he kind of learns his lesson, but I still am just like, I don't like you.
I agree with you, Taylor. Like, it's a very wholesome, nice, it's a type of coming of age movie I think we actually don't see very often, where it really is just a super simple slice of life. Obviously, the unique part about this one that is not seen nearly enough in film over the years is the gay storyline. And it specifically is dealing with this character trying to deal with coming out, which I love the device of how come only gay people have to come out? Everything Simon is experiencing is what anybody who's going to high school experiences, except he's like, damn, how am I going to come out as gay? And how am I going to navigate this? And he finally has a friend that he could talk to about it, and it's secret and he doesn't really know who it is. And there's that whole mystery around it. And I think the movie is really, really wholesome in that way.
In some ways, and maybe it's just because we're comparing this movie to the other ones on this list, but in some ways this movie feels very sanitized to me. It feels more like Heartstopper on Netflix now, where like it kind of feels like nothing bad's gonna happen and nothing bad really does happen. I mean, the Martin character is like the villain.
No, I feel you on that. I mean, like he gets bullied by two kids after it gets revealed, but for the most part, people are really supportive of him. His parents are decently supportive. You know, it's a very awkward moment with his parents, and I think that feels relatable to me, honestly, where I think that is a moment that's difficult for all parties involved. You know, he's really putting himself out there. He doesn't know how they're going to react. they're trying to react positively, but they don't really know what to say or what he wants to hear. And the dad kind of fumbles it, even though he's not at all against him for it. And there's that moment of tension, and he has that great scene with his mom where he asks her, like, did you know? And I think that is all really, just really real to me.
Yeah, I think that line that the mom has to him when he asks her if she knows, and she was like, I didn't know, but I knew you had a secret. You used to just be so free as a kid. And then all of a sudden you started being like very reserved or whatever she says. It's just like so poignant to probably what it is to be someone who is coming to terms with who they are, but is afraid to tell the people around them who they are, which I think is just really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theme in pretty much every one of these movies, which is the being yourself and finding yourself.
Yeah, I think both of you kind of mentioned this, but this is just like quintessential suburban American teenage story. Yeah. It is like more of an upper middle class suburban world, and that's important to mention. So maybe that's why I think it feels like a bit more sanitized, but it's also the only one that is like straight up a romance.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where like there are romantic elements in a lot of the other ones, but they all kind of have like something else going on, but like the main plot of this movie is romance. Obviously it's coming out, but like to the end of romance, you know?
I 100% agree with what you're saying, where it does feel a little sanitized. I'm torn on how that makes me feel, because part of me thinks we need more of these, because I think in a world where like every coming of age story revolves around something like really traumatic happening to the main character, it kind of like what do you take from that then as a teenager who has not had something traumatic happen to you but still feels, you know, like lost and confused and like you can't relate to things. So it's like the sanitized version is also someone's reality, right? Like I'm sure there is a kid like Simon out there who like that was his experience, you know, kind of thing. And so I think a movie like this and a story like this is like you also matter, even if nothing like earth-shatteringly horrific happened to you. Like your story still matters. Like you're still a person. It's still a story worth telling.
I think that's why I love this subgenre and this collection of movies specifically, because this, obviously it's not a comprehensive list, but the movies that we picked for this list kind of show that there's no wrong way to be a teenager, and there's no wrong way to be a person. There's no wrong way to be yourself. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like Skins versus Heartstopper. Like, right, like there's more than one way to be a teenager. And
I think you need both, right? Like you need to see both ends of the spectrum. And I think oftentimes it's so easy to default to the more traumatic because those are more like juicy stories, so to speak.
I'd like to celebrate this film for something. I'd like to celebrate its use of fuck in a PG-13 movie. I think it's a banger use. Get him. Get Martin.
Yeah, Martin is the worst and was worth saving the F-bomb for. Yeah, another one with a great soundtrack.
Definitely great soundtrack. I think
shout out Jack Antonoff.
Yeah, Jack Antonoff doing the music and
just put all his own songs in.
Bookending the movie with his own music is
respect.
Is a choice, and I like his music, so it's okay. I do also want to shout out, we talked about it a little bit, but like I think Jennifer Garner and Josh Duhamel are really good at being the parents in this movie. I think I like when he comes out and the dad just like makes a joke. He's like, which one of your girlfriends turned you gay or whatever? Like, such a bad joke. It's not how you should talk to someone who's coming out. Like it's not even in good taste, but also he's like trying to connect with his kid.
Like it mean it.
Like it's just like way. It's like kind of a microaggression, but he also like loves his son. And I think the scene later on in the movie when he like comes clean and he's just like, I don't know how to do this, but like I love you and you're my son. And I think that's a really good moment when because Simon's obviously like coming to terms with who he now is and reconciling who he was as a kid with who he is now, which I think is a really important element of a coming of age movie, reconciling that like I am now a different person than I was, but I am also still the same person, and the people in my life who loved me then can still love me now, even though this fundamental thing is very different about me or different from their perspective. How do you guys feel about Blue being revealed early in the movie and then it being the guy who he loses? Like he doesn't think it is at first, but then it winds up being him.
Obviously the circumstance, the setup is really interesting, but Simon looking everywhere for Blue, I think is a really toxic thing that he gets into. And it makes perfect sense that he would get into it. But like you're watching the movie and you're like, oh dude, you can't think every single person in the school is Blue and like start putting things on people that they're not presenting to the world, like trying to read between everybody's lines. So it is kind of this judging somebody too quickly and realizing that everybody has different things that they're going through, and the way that they're outwardly expressing themselves is not necessarily what's inward, and that's what Simon is doing, and he's not seeing that in other people. And I think that is maybe a moment that is not fully explored, where like that's kind of a light bulb that could potentially go off for him.
Yeah, I think it's kind of devastating, but also very real, of the like looking for love in all the wrong places, and the fact that Simon has now come to terms with the fact that he's gay, but is not really ready to tell the world. But he's like looking for someone to confide in who shares that experience and identity with him, and he's just so desperately looking for anyone that can relate to him in that way. And like, I mean, I think at the end of the movie, the point is kind of that the people who are close to you will accept you for who you are, regardless of whether or not they can relate.
Where do you guys want to put this movie?
I think I put this under Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I think this one actually maybe last for me.
Last for you? This one's weird for me because I would put it above Perks but below Dope, but that's obviously not what the rat list is. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm gonna let Dope stay above it. Like me liking Dope more matters more to me than me liking this more than Perks, if that makes sense. Well, in that case, the Rats on Film official ranking for the first round of coming of age films, objectively in our opinion, starting from the bottom: Love, Simon, Dope, Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Edge of 17, Submarine, and The Big Cheese, Dead Poets Society.
Yay.
Big cheese. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad putting Love, Simon at the end because I really do love this movie, but
they're all good movies is what I'll say.
Yeah.
I feel like we often come to this conclusion at the end, or at least on a lot of the ones that I come on. Yeah. But like, these are all movies that I do and will watch time and time again.
Yeah. And I think it's like when we're having these conversations too, there's obviously different reasons why you like something, and it's really hard to weigh like my own like weirdo reasons for loving something. Like I feel like I do put so much love and care towards Perks of Being a Wallflower, but like it's not fully justified, and I know that. I understand that. And I kind of feel like that about Love, Simon too. Like I feel like there's elements of it just being like my cozy movie, but it's not really in the movie, so that's why I put it last, but I do really love it.
Well, I don't know if we've come of age on this podcast, but we're like an hour older. Thanks for listening to Rats on Film, everybody. Tell a friend about the show where a bunch of little rats get older and talk about and rank movies. You can follow us on social media, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Rats on Film Pod. We'll post this list on Letterboxd and all the future lists we make on there. You can follow us over there as well. Rate us 5 stars and stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about and rank some more movies. And someday, when we're a little bit older, we'll come back and talk about some more coming-of-age movies. May add them to this list, have a little more discussion about what it means to grow up.
We could be heroes.
Carpe Diem.